So, I just realized I might have fucked up. I don't know if I equipped any guns. I don't remember how to check. I don't have any guns. Okay, so this is going to be a fun match. Total fuck up on my end. Let's see what I can do. I'm gonna head south and try to get something. But on this journey, I got a little thing to talk about. Excuse me for 1 second. Thank you. So I was talking to a friend of mine earlier, and we were discussing different riots, protests, just different events going on in America throughout the years, not even 2020 or 2021, but just throughout American history in general. And let's sneak in here, close that door so no one knows, and loot. You're not going to find any guns, but better than nothing. Whoa. Okay. Well, that just happened. I found a knife. Alright. And another photo? I don't know what this stuff means. I'm assuming these are collectibles to go back at the little mansion place. But like I said, we were talking about different riots, different protests, different things, and one thing that we covered was the Black Lives Matter group. And this friend of mine, they said that they can't support the organization because it's a Marxist organization. And that frustrated me because they had such a shallow understanding of such a complicated thing. Not just the Black Lives Matter organization or the movement, but the... I don't know what that did, but I did it. Whoa! Fuck! Time to go. Shit, they straight up shot and missed. But yeah, not only just the organization, but the movement in general. And I just wanted to sum it up for really anyone that's listening. So the question really is that... First question is, where the fuck am I? We're going to get the fuck away from here. We're just going to head up this way. Hope for the best. Is Black Lives Matter a Marxist organization? The answer is yes and no. To keep it short, I'll give you the short version, and if you care, you can listen to the long version afterwards. The short version, the yes comes in with, yes, Black Lives Matter is a Marxist organization because the founders of which have admitted to being trained Marxists. Admitted to being trained Marxists, trained in leftist theory, and using that to help build their movement and to just go from there. So yes, Black Lives Matter is a Marxist organization. No, Black Lives Matter is not a Marxist movement. There are countless people who have protested, done varying things with the hashtag or brand Black Lives Matter that are not Marxists, that are not socialists, that have varying political leanings across the spectrums. These people just generally supported civil rights. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing inherently left nor right or Marxist, capitalist, none of that. There's nothing about that that is any kind of political or shows any political leaning besides, I don't know, common decency. Where's this fucking phone? Is it in here? Doesn't sound like it. Sounds like this place has already been raided. Except for that.
If you want the airdrop to fall into a different zone, use the comm station.
But yeah, so that's the answer in the no. I want to turn off this phone, but I gotta fucking find it. Wow, just knifed him. Bitch. Thank you. Although that knife is slow. Shit. But yeah, that's the simple part of the yes and no. And now for the long version. As soon as I figure how to get the fuck out of here, might as well just jump out a window. Bitch. No, so now for the long version. Civil rights has had a long, complicated history with leftist thought theory, socialism, communism, Marxism, all of those things, and especially in America. And there's a couple reasons for that. I'll try to progress through them as quickly and shot at and trying to survive. But to start, all this really starts with... Is that the phone? That's the phone. Alright. I don't know what that does, but I did it. But this all starts with Lincoln, really. Lincoln and Marx, actually. Marx wrote letters to Lincoln celebrating his re-election. I believe his almost exact words were, the rallying cry of your re-election will be death to slavery. And then Lincoln responded to those letters, but in one of his speeches, he had this whole spiel about how labor is superior to capital and deserves much the higher consideration. He said that not only as the civil rights activist, as the person trying to abolish slavery and establish the union that he was. He said that as someone who genuinely saw that labor, the work, that the time that people used and the energy they spent was more important than the profit generated by those who took that profit off of who skimmed off the top. So that's really where... Am I here? Yeah, I am. Okay, cool. That's really where the whole idea of Marxism and communism and the civil rights movement began. It began with Marx and Lincoln. They were really the first ones to really start pushing that ideas. I don't know what this means, but it looks like everything's already been taken, so that doesn't mean anything for me. And we can just progress through the Civil War, because we all know how that went. But we also know that not long after that, minorities did not get much reprieve or much anything. They didn't get any benefit, really. I mean, yeah, slavery was over, which was great, but that was followed by Jim Crow, segregation, redlining of neighborhoods, blockbusting, lynching, economic oppression, violence. I mean, to ask why... Well, I'm getting shot at? Shit. I got a lot of ammo. Because I don't. I'm gonna wait for that fucking drop.
The plane is incoming. Beware of the drop zone. It will be dangerous.
Hopefully be able to get the fuck out. But yeah, all those different things. Where are you, Santa? You're gonna get me killed. There you are. I mean, whoosh. That's gonna be a bullet hell. Many states even forced black people to sign labor contracts, forcing them into sharecropping. Otherwise, they would be declared vagrants and arrested, which essentially is just another form of slavery. It's either work or get arrested and die. I mean, is that not the definition of slavery? These guys are gonna fuck me up, and it's gonna take them a second.
Is dangerous. Stealth and speed can be the key to success.
Come on, hurry up. I hate how you can't move the camera while looting the airdrop.
Be cautious when carrying the airdrop, as your position is exposed.
Time to get the fuck on out and get into cover. But yeah, they forced them into sharecropping. It was just another form of slavery. That's what they forced them into. And at that time, there was a socialist party. Socialism did have a small foothold in the United States. I see you, motherfucker. Socialism did have a small foothold and they were largely filled with foreigners, and even then, a lot of those foreigners still had some racist sentiments and white supremacist views. And again, you can only marginally blame these black people for seeking out outside sources beyond what the cultural norms dictated to them, because the cultural norms hated them. People like Peter H. Clark, I believe, black educator from Ohio. He really... Did I escape? I think I escaped. No, there's someone over there. Whoa. Bitch. But Peter H. Clark, he was a black educator from Ohio in the 1870s, often called the first black socialist. Yeah. Got that fucking airdrop. But often called the first black socialist. He advocated for, black laborers during union strikes or trade strikes when unions did not. And these trade strikes turned violent, and companies and the government sent in people to kill up these laborers and the people who were striking. It was silence for the black labor. But it was Peter Clark who spoke up for them. Where are my crates? 2 uncommons. Meh, junk. And then after Peter Clark, there was Reverend Brown, and Peter Clark was in the 1870s-ish, so Reverend Brown was around the 1920s. Gospel man, Reverend, clearly, advocated for the working class and socialist views in his churches, built up a whole network and did their thing to liberate black people. Hey, a scorpion. But that was the important work. That was the work at that time that needed to be done. W.E.B. Du Bois, he came over, Du Bois. He came out in supporting communism directly because, and this was his words, essentially, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. They were cut out by their capitalist class. They were denied opportunities, loans. Banks refused to do business with them. Places refused to hire them. They were employed at lower wages. I mean, how much more can a capitalist society do to beat down these people before they turn towards someone else, and before that capitalist society admits that it may have done some wrong to warrant this behavior? It never does. It then leads over to McCarthyism, and that's a whole nother story. But the problem here is that there was the Great Depression, which had a big whole economic problem, as we all know what the Great Depression is and what it does. Black people were largely left out of that national recovery efforts. They created unions to get what they needed, but those were met with violence and lynching, as everyone expected, as history has been proven to lead up to that point. And then, again, we're talking the 1930s, so not long after that, we have mass incarceration with the war on drugs. Jim Crow laws continued, lynchings continued. All of these things displaced the black economic condition, the livelihoods. There was nothing about it that really allowed black people to prosper in capitalism. It was geared against them, which is why a lot of people tend to say, leftists have this view that racism and capitalism are inherent. They're not inherent. They're not built in together, unless you're in America, where they were built in together. And that's the problem. You have people like Huey P. Newton, who comes out saying that we have two evils to fight, capitalism and racism, and both must be destroyed, because those two things were worked in together by those people. Large example here, Nixon. When they did the war on crime, or the war on poverty, or whatever they wanted to call it, he essentially, I believe his direct quote was that crime meant urban meant black, and the war on crime meant a bulwark built against the increasingly political and vocal racial other by the predominantly white race, which essentially said that we need to push down black people, we need to fight the racial other because it is their political and economic movement. It is them that creates crime in our society. Maya Angelou follows up. She says, wasn't no communist that enslaved my grandpa, and it wasn't no communist that lynched my pop or raped my mom. There's not many other ways to phrase how and why socialism or a black socialist would exist, or why these things would find root and thrive in the United States. The sentiment carries on to militant black nationalists or militant black advocates and civil rights leaders like Malcolm X. What was his? Can't operate a capitalist system unless you're a vulture, or unless you are vulturistic. You have to have someone else's blood to suck to be a capitalist. I mean, it gets straight to the point. So when people tell you that Black Lives Matter is a Marxist organization, or that, and I'm just running around at this point because I'm going to wrap this video up, but if they say Black Lives Matter is a Marxist organization, or then they reference, and this game takes place in, like, what is that, Sweden? Norway? But when they mention these things, or when they say that, like, civil rights movements and things are communist or socialist, you really got to see this view as to where it originated. That idea really found its root in a capitalist society that profited by oppressing, defeating, and brutalizing racial minorities. And when those minorities stood up and found a voice for themselves, it found the best way to vilify them, and it did so economically and politically. And here we are today. So, thanks for listening. I'll record another one and post it up later.